Hey there. So if this is our first time meeting, I'm Kenny K here with Jeremy, and here we talk about faith, life, but mostly frivolities. And you're now listening to Small Talks Radio. So the question for today is why do Americans tend to deal with insecurity through rebellion?
Yeah, what are we going to do with that? I think that that's a distinctive of Americans in general. Like on a global scale, if I was to talk to, I don't know, anybody, just kind of randomly select around the world, Americans have their own, I don't know, personality traits, the stereotypes that go with them. And I feel like rebellion goes along with it. And more than that, having grown up here, this one feels accurate. This sort of tendency towards, you can't tell me what to do. It's like a hyper value of freedom and individuality, things like that. How does this connect to insecurity? Um, I think that this is our first recourse when something seems like a threat. When I say insecurity, I don't just mean like, oh, like I'm broken in these areas or whatever. But in general, when our confidence is threatened, this is where we double down first. It's a whole lot easier to just say, well, you can't tell me what to do. Okay, I can do whatever I want. And then it becomes this challenge, this mark of solidarity against whatever it is that's I guess it's just an immediate, very defensive stance where freedom is this highest value that shouldn't be questioned under any circumstances. And so rebellion's a nice, easy thing to do. It started our country. All you have to do is just kind of fight back a little bit and people kind of give you the thumbs up. You can say whatever you want, do whatever you want, as long as you're confident in yourself. And, well, it gets the job done most of the time. Doesn't lead to great conversation, but makes us feel good about ourselves.
Yeah, so I don't know if this is a good parallel, but that reminded me, or at least I don't know, the way way you talked about it reminded me of a teenager going through puberty.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah,
Yes.
they're not cooperative. They don't listen. They don't do what you tell them to do. I mean, if I was a parent and if I was talking to a teenager or their children going through puberty and they're stuck up, I don't know.
There's something
It
to
has
be,
elements of that in it. So
yeah, it definitely does. Is there something to be said about it where like America is in its adolescence right now? I don't know what would be considered like the adolescent age for a nation, for a
but,
country. I mean,
but
coming on, we're
I don't
past
think it's a
50.
bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing though, because I mean, if you look at other countries, actually, or if you look at Canada per se, we're apologetic, very, very apologetic, and we don't like to hurt other people's feelings, and we're pretty submissive compared to other countries like the U.S. And if I were to put that into someone's lifespan, or if I were to compare it to a human or a part of human cycle, life cycle, then it would be children that hasn't gone through puberty yet. So
Maybe that's how it works. Does that mean that Canada eventually gets more rebellious? It also asks, can we look at all the histories of the other countries and see what the average person's attitude would look like at any given period? I don't know, because America was founded on rebellion, so maybe this doesn't pan out all the way.
it was just a parallel. It didn't. I didn't mean to predict Canadian future and
That's
how
true.
the demographic would do. Uh, we're
Yeah.
just comparing characteristics, right? So anyway, but that's a cool thought. Actually, recently here in Canada, in Toronto, there was a parade, and
Mm.
just like a lot of the Americans down south, um, they are disobedient, I guess, to the government, and they had parades,
Oh, that
anti-mask,
okay, yeah.
anti, yeah. So we had one of those things that you I, I I haven't seen it in Canada before, not a rally like that. So um, maybe we are turning into little America as
Yeah.
time passes by. Yeah.
I wonder, so the other interesting thing is like where exactly does this come from? So I think freedom is going to be the kind of the bottom line, or someone's idea of freedom is going to end up being the bottom line. That's what we can say historically. What would have caused, it was a revolution in our case. Um, and civil rights seems to be based on this kind of thing. There's this established norm, and the idea is to fight against it. So rebellion comes out here. Um, yeah, but most of those movements seem to be founded on that kind of thing. That what's interesting is the stuff that you have written down under this. We have the idea of the underdog, and yeah, if you're not the underdog, does it make any sense to rebel? I hadn't thought about that. This is how we paint most of our social justice stuff these days. Is somehow you're being oppressed and you have to rise above it. In that regard, it's very justified. Basically, anything that you do, as long as you're trying to take down the whatever's oppressing you. It's very Marxist, is what it is.
I don't know about being Marxist, but historically, America is. I mean, if you look at it through a historical lens, they were oppressed by the British when the people were there, and the people that got sent to the Americas per se were, they're not regular people. All of them are, going out to look for new opportunities because they didn't have the same opportunities back in England or whatnot. A lot of them were refugees and the immigrants and settlers. They went there to look for a better life, and that meant going through tough, hard challenges, and then through that, I mean, they felt like they made something for themselves. And when a superpower like England said, you can't do that. You got to pay you got to pay taxes, or these are the regulations. They're like, well, why do you have such powerful say in what I do when you're so far away from me? So it's just, if you look
Yeah,
at
and
it
then
historically, it does make sense.
yeah, and then furthermore, like, what are you going to do about it if I don't? And so we get a war. Uh, Interesting. The conflict seeking comes up as well. Uh, I think maybe because this ends up being this sort of like cognitive model for how conflict should be resolved in the first place. That if there's a disagreement, maybe some of us just default to this combative sort of, well, this is where I stand, and basically until you agree with me, we're not going to have peace. And obviously, if you have two people that have that stance, it's not going to work super well. Um, but as long as that's an ideal under certain circumstances, like actually maybe the greater contrast would be with, say, Korea, and you'll know this better than I would. We were taught things like, you got to stand up for yourself and always stick by your guns, stand up for what you believe in, and don't compromise. And that's not, well, first off, it's not sustainable. And second off, that's not necessarily like the wisest way to deal with these types of things. So as a default stance, well, it makes you look stronger, but it just ends up, I feel like we end up misguided on a lot of things just because we feel like our own perspective on the world is automatically correct. Okay, so how does that kind of thing work in Korea? Would you teach a kid that kind of thing?
Nowadays I don't think so. It's very, so let's put it this way. I wouldn't. I mean, I haven't been to Korea in a very long time, so I wouldn't know how the system works back there because
Right,
I
but think
grew
back
up
to
in
like where
Canada. So
you
right,
like
so
your
that's
early
why I was
days.
thinking. Yeah, yeah. What? That's hard to say because I can't think. I mean, I can't. I have no expertise. I don't have that much experience back then, and so I wouldn't be able to comment based on the Korean perspective, I guess, or at least what their education system or their social structure is. But I do think differently to what you said, and to contrast what you just said. Um, for example, bullies, and I used to think, when people look at bullies, they think it's a bad thing, but it happens all the time, right? Like, it doesn't matter what
Hmm.
society you're in, bullying does happen. And as our society in Canada, we frown upon that, and be villainize the bullies, and and try to put them in this place where obviously bullying is not a great thing, but I think it still has a place in our society. Not as a good thing, but you can't have you can't have only good, right? There needs to be something that the only reason why we know things are good is because there's something bad, and the good itself is apart from the bad things. That's why we know it's good. So if bullying is all gone, it might. I mean, it's impossible. There's always wars. There's always conflicts. There's people doing different things. A lot of the bullying, the kids that people are taught what they're doing. We learn by example, and a lot of the bullies they were bullied. That's why they bully. And I think I was a bully, and I was bullied. So firsthand experience there. But I, even though it's a bad thing, I think when you uh, take it into perspective, it's just a course. It's a course that takes place in many people's lives, and it's a natural thing, sort of
So when
say.
it came to that kind
Yeah,
of thing, uh, bullying is a great example of this. Uh, Growing up, I would have been taught that like the strong kids will stand up to the bully, and that's how you basically take care of this situation. There's some people though, I don't know, the school would have properly said, go tell the teacher or whatever. But at home, at least from what I can tell, what was largely standard was that it's you fight back. You fight back for yourself, and if you end up having to get into a fight and you win against the bully, then fine, you get suspended. But I'm taking you into ice cream because there's
right, right.
what does that look like in
It's a
Canada?
competitive thing, right? Like it depends on the family, right? For my family, I was the bully, so that really didn't happen. Um,
Okay,
right. So I would be in the other side of the conversation. Like you should no, but
were
my
you big,
parents
the big
didn't.
guy in the
No,
class
right.
growing up
Okay.
too?
My parents didn't know that I was a bully. They probably still don't know. But
Okay.
well, actually, yeah. um, I wasn't. Yeah.
Now all of our
So
zero viewers know.
it's okay. All over zero. Yeah. I mean, I think no, but I think they embrace it. Like they didn't know that I was bullied or I was bullying, but things come with immigrant life, right? We have other things to care about. Parents they have to work and try to feed their family. They're not so they don't have the time or the energy to you know. Sometimes they do,
Right.
but it's not. I don't think it's a priority in a lot of families' lives, even though it should be, because I guess emotional scars or um, I guess mental health in certain cases might be a big thing to a lot of people, but in my personal experience, it didn't. I don't know. It wasn't a big deal. We didn't really talk about
Didn't
it,
ever
so
come up.
yeah, never came
There
up.
seems to be a. I was one of my students had recommended an anime, and I had her analyze it as an
Called.
assignment because I can't remember. It was I wonder if I could find it quickly. It's on Netflix. Just go search through all the animes. It's on this. Okay, so there's a
Canadian
guy.
Netflix has a different.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
We could probably find it on Crunchyroll.
No,
We're not
but
getting paid for
okay. So
this.
what's the? It's okay. What's the?
Okay, so premise is there's a guy and he's a bully when he's like a little kid and he bullies the poor deaf girl. And then he grows up and feels bad for it. And so, but in the process, he's growing up like really insecure and really like introverted because he feels bad because everybody hates him for being a bully. And so, in a sense, you feel his justice, so he gets what he deserves. But then you also get to see that he's like, also a real person.
Right.
Doesn't
Right. Okay.
he's dealing with real life as a little kid. And what I found striking was that like apparently, and I'd ask a few other Koreans about this. Apparently, people get, and maybe even in Japan specifically, people just straight up more abusive over there, like more
Oh
physically
yeah.
abusive. That's
Yeah.
that was
That
startling.
is true. Yeah.
Yeah,
People
like
beat each other.
adults getting in a
Yeah.
fight. Yeah, like what's going on here? So
Yeah.
that was something I was totally
I don't know if
unfamiliar with.
they do this still, but I don't know if the teachers still beat children or students. And I think not too long ago, like even in the army, like because we get
Mm,
conscripted, everyone has to go. Like people get beaten up inside,
right. Yeah.
the barracks and stuff.
I'm not sure what
That
ours is like
actually that
anymore.
that the anime, the name that you don't know, it
Hmm.
reminded me of Nelson from Simpsons. I don't know if you watch Simpsons, but
The
Nelson
little
has a
kid,
backstory.
I know who you're talking about.
He's a poor kid. He's the big bully, but he
Hmm.
cause I think his parents are like I
Wait,
don't know.
Nelson.
Yeah,
I
like
thought
he's
Nelson was the little kid with the blue hair
no.
and the
Oh no,
glasses.
that's Millhouse.
Ah, that's right.
Nelson is the one that goes
The big.
ha ha,
Yeah.
and then
Okay.
he's the big bully and he beats up everyone. And for his birthday party, like no one went except for Bart and it was I
Oh
don't know. You
man,
saw that like yeah,
I
you
didn't.
can
But
yeah.
like the Simpsons know how to keep it real. Like every now and
Oh
again,
yeah.
they'll have these
Or at least the
very
older
compelling
episodes,
episodes.
they're very
Mm,
yeah, they're very well thought out and it's a slice of life, right? So
yeah. I wonder if there's anything that's like that anymore. I haven't seen anything recently at all, so I guess I wouldn't know.
yeah.
Huh. Well, that's all the time we have for today, folks. Until next time, we'll
All
see
right.
you next time.
We'll come back next week. Take care, guys.
Take it easy.